Welcome to episode 6. I appreciate your listening to episode 5. That was a rough story for me to tell. In case you couldn't tell, I was actually reading from parts of stories that I had published about that. And it really brought back a lot of those memories. Some of the things I went to for resource were newspaper clippings of the event and just going back and trying to remember details and things that happened. And I'm a little surprised at myself at the amount of detail that I was able to come up with in remembering what happened to me. I maybe have underestimated over the years just how lucky I was at 10 years old to have saved my own life and done what I did. I'm still a little taken aback by the fact that I did that and that I was lucky enough to encounter an orthopedic surgeon like Dr. Blackburn, who not only saved my leg, but really saved my life, because I would have had a different life without a right leg. I'm not sure what would have happened or what my journey would have been, but in any event, I ended up with my leg completely recovering, and I was able to walk and run and do things as a kid that I would not have been able to do. So I'm very thankful for that. I'm also thankful for the gentleman that happened to be coming home late at night that found me, because I wouldn't have lasted much longer in that ravine. And now at 75, I look back on that and think, well, maybe some of those things that I learned or had happened to me in that ravine, or the thought processes, the things I went through in order to save myself, maybe some of those attributes are still there, and I've been able to draw from them and use that in my recovery. I do know that I've tried a lot to use humor. I have to share with you a little bit. Since I started doing stand-up comedy, because I was working for almost 14 years for a Dutch software company from the late 80s until the early 2000s, I was able to travel all over Europe. I had tons of air miles with Delta. I was able to upgrade to business class a lot of times, which made it easier flying. For me, I was able to travel to all kinds of different European countries, all over the United States, many different countries, many different trips, meeting incredible people. My career was something that I'm very proud of. Was very lucky to have and been able to do. Made a tremendous number of friends overseas. And throughout it all, whenever I would travel, especially here in the States, when I would go to larger cities, I would find some time to go and do open mics. And I got good. I got good at my routine. And so the MCs would say, you know what, if you come back in town, let me know and I'll give you some extra stage time. Thanks for coming. We appreciate it. So I was able to hone my craft and really work hard to develop a good stand-up routine. Since then, I've even been performing here in Mobile at different bars and restaurants and places, and especially before I got hurt. I'm hoping to get back into it once I do recover. Well, moving on, one of the things that I would like to go into now is once I left the skilled nursing center after 64 days, it was February of last year, which had been 2025. In February, I came home. I started working with home PT and OT and nursing in order to continue my recovery. My wonderful wife, who had spent lots of times visiting me and bringing me some good food and taking care of me as best she could while I was in the different rehab facilities, when I came home, she had literally changed our dining room in our 1910 bungalow into a hospital room. I have a hospital bed. I have the dining room table moved to the end of the room with my supplies and clothing on it. And I have my walker and my wheelchair. And I've become strong enough that I'm able to move myself from the bed to the wheelchair and back into bed. I'm able to stand and walk with the walker. I'm working with mostly home PT now. I got strong enough and passed all the tests for OT, so I really don't need them right now. It is March. of 2026. So I've been out of the skilled nursing center for over a year, and home PT has really helped me come a long way through my first knee replacement surgery in July of last year and my second knee replacement surgery in October. So I no longer have to worry about my knees. I have apparently state-of-the-art titanium, different polymers, whatever, a knee replacement, and I don't have any more pain. They're very strong. This is great. I mean, this is something that is a huge load off my mind. I'm still hanging in there with my weight around 308, 310. I'm now working on my core because my core is weak. Even though I've tried working on it over time, it's still my weak spot. And I'm not going to be able to walk properly until I get my core stronger. So I'm working with PT. I do quite a bit of walking. I do stretching. I do wheelchair sit-ups, which are sit-ups that are good for my core. I'm really trying to work hard so that I can start to reclaim my balance, which is a big thing that I'm missing out on. My balance is poor, even after all this time and hard work. My core is, not there yet. I think my new target date for being able to walk without a walker and somewhat normally is probably October of this year, which will put me at well over 2 years of recovery. So definitely a long road. In any event, when I came home in February and started working with some great folks from my home healthcare people, one of my who's become a good friend, PT workers, helped me find a really great orthopedic surgeon that was happy to take on my case and was happy to operate so that I can end up with 2 new knees, and that worked well. So I'm very happy about that. That portion of my recovery when I was at Encompass Health, I'm going to go into the next episode in more detail because, as you remember, my theme or my purpose for this podcast is to compare what I call our standard healthcare system that we have in this country to a company that has a different attitude, a company that has a more of a whole body overall approach to recovery, and that would be Encompass Health. I realize that, that's been a common theme, and I want to keep talking about them because I'm so amazed at how much further along I got just in 2 weeks with them compared to, months with the other rehab facilities. Were they that much better? In some ways, very much so. And a lot of it has to do with the way they run their organization. So I'm going to go into more detail about that. In the meantime, I think what would be good would be to talk with you now about, after getting my second knee replacement surgery, my wife wanted to do a kind of a celebratory thing to recognize that I was recovering. And she was hoping that once I got my second knee operated on in the beginning of October, that I would be walking well by the time January 1st rolled around. Well, that didn't happen. I tried hard, but I was just not able to make as much progress as I would have liked. But she had planned a trip to Florida where we were going to rent a small house in St. Petersburg in the historic district. And the beach was nearby, beautiful, wonderful restaurants were nearby. There were parks we could go to look at flamingos and other wildlife. We were planning on going to see manatees. It was just a wonderful trip. So we had planned that, and we went on it. And well, I don't know how to put this, but it didn't turn out quite the way I had envisioned. So I want to tell you the story. And is there some funny stuff? Oh, I think so. I thought it was funny. Are there some eventful things that happened? You could say that. Was there some good food involved? Absolutely. Were there good people? wonderful people. All in all, when I look back on it, I thoroughly enjoyed the trip. I really did. It had its ups and downs, but all in all, I'm glad we did it. And I'll do a shout out to my wife for putting it together and putting up with me. It wasn't always easy. There were times where I was a pain in the ass, and it's something that I look back on now that I really appreciate what she did. After we left the house after a couple of days in St. Petersburg, we went to Disney World. And Disney World takes care of people in wheelchairs wonderfully. I had no issues at all when we got to Disney World. I was able to transport from the bed to my wheelchair, my travel wheelchair. Everything was on one level. I didn't have to worry about steps, anything. I was able to thoroughly enjoy 2 days in Animal Kingdom, eating some good food, doing some great things. It was a wonderful part of the trip. Okay, we headed out to drive to our rental house in St. Petersburg. And Debbie has a Mini Cooper Countryman that's pretty big, and I was very comfortable in it. I was able to transport fine in that car. And we made sure that the house that we were renting was one level and that it was going to be easy for me to move around in my travel wheelchair. But one thing that was concerning was that the front steps, there were 3 steps up to a covered porch, and then 1 step into the house. And I was going to have to go up those steps, get up out of my wheelchair, hold onto the railing, and walk up those steps. I had been practicing and talking to the PT folks about how best to do this. So I thought I had a good game plan on how to conquer the steps, and I will tell you what happened. But in the meantime, we headed out. One of the things that we wanted to do was stop in Tampa at a wonderful restaurant called the Columbia. And if you ever get a chance to go to the original restaurant in Tampa, Florida, it is well worth it. There are 15 dining rooms, and the whole building takes up a city block. It was established in 1905, and if everybody was in every dining room and it was full, that would be 1,700 people could have dinner at the same time. I didn't get to see the kitchen, but it's got to be massive, and the food was incredible. We ended up with what they call their 1905 salad, which is just amazing, a wonderful Cuban sandwich, and black bean soup. We couldn't eat it all, so we had to get some to go, and we had a wonderful meal. We headed out to our little beach cottage in Gulfport, St. Petersburg, about an hour from the restaurant, which wasn't too bad. The restaurant's in Tampa, and then you go across the bay, and our beach house was in St. Petersburg in a little town called Gulfport. And it was an eclectic historic neighborhood with small bungalows that are painted in South Florida colors like the blues and the turquoise and the pink. They look like houses that were built in maybe the 50s and 60s, but well taken care of. As we got closer to the house, we realized that we were arriving just as an art event called Night Market was taking place. Now, we knew it was supposed to be close to our house, but we didn't realize it was right out the front door. Night Market was on our street, and it went up the block, across the street, and back down. It was just a lot of things that we could see within that a couple of block radius. We also realized that there were restaurants that lined the street right across from our house and down the block. So there were restaurants right at our fingertips. We were able to make the circuit. I was in my wheelchair. Debbie was walking. So for about an hour to an hour and a half after we got there, I got to have a great time with Night Market. So we made it back to the house as starting to get dusk a little bit, and I checked out the railing next to the steps, and it was a very substantial aluminum railing. So I felt better about that. I would be able to hang on to it and take the steps necessary to get up the 3 steps into the covered porch and then the 1 step up into the house. Debbie got into the house and basically stood at the top with the walker so that when I made it to the top, I could then transition to the walker and then move into the house and then take that next step. Well, folks, I stood up from my wheelchair, I grabbed the railing, and I stepped up through the first step. I stepped up to the second step. And I took the third step with my right foot. I did not realize that my giant size 16 tennis shoes would get caught under the ledge where the house sat on the cinder blocks and where the cement steps were attached. There was a little ledge, and my shoe caught under the ledge by the toe of my shoe and sort of trapped me. When I tried to pull my foot back, I kind of panicked, and I think I held my breath. As soon as I did that, it depleted the oxygen from my muscles. The fact that my heart wasn't helping either, I just became instantly exhausted. When I got my foot onto the step, the shoe just wouldn't let me lift it up to that last step. Debbie was in the house with the walker, getting more concerned. But I thought, all I have to do is make that last step, and I couldn't do it. I was holding on to the rail and balancing on the door frame, getting more exhausted, and I knew that I didn't want to collapse on the steps. There was a young man, and I guess his girlfriend or wife, that were walking by, and he came running up and tried to help me by pushing me, but I couldn't get my leg up at all. At that point, when I leaned forward and tried to force myself, it just didn't work. I still couldn't get my foot up, and I realized that I was starting to collapse onto the steps. So I told Deb, push the walker back, and I just went forward onto my knees and laid over on the floor inside the covered porch. And I laid back and caught my breath. A policeman came up, and he wanted to know what was going on, if I was okay. And I said, well, no, I don't know how I'm going to get up. And he said, well, I've already called the fire department and the EMT. They'll be here in just a few minutes. Well, it was like deja vu for me, because this is what happened last year on our anniversary when we had to call the fire department, the EMTs, to come and put me back in bed. It was a repeat of that, which was very embarrassing. But I knew I couldn't get up, so this was the best we could do in that situation. As luck would have it, there were still quite a few people that were walking around at night market. And here comes the fire department and EMT with full lights and sirens. That was making it even worse. People stopped and stared, not knowing why the police were there and why the ambulance was there and why the EMT folks were there and the fire department. So they pull up, they all came and looked at me laying on the floor, immediately started checking me over. The EMT folks checked my blood pressure, oxygen level, heart rate to make sure I wasn't suffering a heart attack. I explained to them what happened. I explained that I simply couldn't make that last step. My foot got stuck. I depleted my oxygen, and now I was just trying to breathe and recover enough to be able to get up. At that point, Deb went to the car and got my safety belt from physical therapy, and they put it around my waist and tightened it. This way, when we were going to get up, one fireman could hold my hand, the other one my other hand, and the third one could grab the belt. All three of them pulled, and I was able to stand straight up. At which point, one of the firemen said, "Holy crap, you're really tall." "Yeah," I said, "I would have never gotten up without your help." Well, they managed to get me up that next step and into a chair, and then eventually into my wheelchair. At which point, the EMT insisted on doing an EKG, did a full check to make sure I was okay. They gave the printout to Debbie. They spent some time with me and talking and chatting, and they were wonderful. I told them about what had happened. I told them about the anniversary thing with the firemen coming. I said, yeah, I'm so happy that you guys came and helped me, and I really appreciate it. So I tried to look at the humor in this situation and look for the positive. Okay, it was kind of funny. I wasn't hurt. I didn't fall. I slid down, laid on my back. I was back in my wheelchair. I was in the cute little rental house. So basically, I was housebound. We thought we would have to call the fire department to come back on that Monday. We checked in on Friday to help me go down the steps, but it turned out that when my daughter and her husband Justin, who was in the Marine Corps and very strong, he was able to help me navigate down the steps when we left. So that was a good part of the story. The good news is once that we were going to leave there, we were going to Disney World, and that's a perfect situation for me in the wheelchair because I can go right in the room, no steps. I can catch the bus to get to the park and meet Debbie there. The restaurants are all easy to get into, and I'm very familiar with that whole situation. I'm looking forward to Disney World, but right now, even though I'm in the house, we're going to get good food. Bring it in. It's going to be a fun time, but I'm stuck not being able to go and do the things that we were going to do because I was afraid that maybe I could get down those steps, but I was afraid I wouldn't be able to get back up them. The next day, I think I was still a little bit freaked out from the firemen and having to get in the house and being housebound, but all in all, things were really good. Our daughter Hannah and her husband Justin came to stay with us, and that was really good. But in the meantime, Debbie did get to go and tour a little park that wasn't too far away, and she could see all kinds of cool birds. Meanwhile, Hannah and Justin drove across the bay to go see manatees, and then they came to see us and stay. And we got pizza from a place across the street, and that was wonderful. It was just great to have them. It was great to be in the art district. It was great to be in this little house. And even though I was housebound, I was having a really good time. We played board games. We ate good food. We visited with each other. It was a lot of fun. And things were going great. And I was very happy until the last night, which would have been Sunday night. And we're going to get up Monday morning and head to Disney World. Well, that last night went sideways. I should describe the beds in this rental house. They were quite high. And I think it was because the owner wanted renters to be able to slide their luggage underneath the bed and get it out of their way. But this meant that when I sat on the bed, it was very tall. I could easily get into my walker to do a stand and then get into the wheelchair. That part was good. Debbie had a little bit of a time because she was 5'7", but she could still get into it with no problem. It was a very comfortable bed. But it did have a kind of a foam topper that when you got to the edge, you would tend to kind of slide more toward the edge. So I had to make sure that I stayed back away from that edge. I had to make sure that when I transferred to the bed, since I didn't have any railings or anything to protect me, I had to be very careful. I did good. I did good Friday night, Saturday night, but Sunday night was my undoing. I don't know. Maybe I was dreaming about flying. Maybe I was dreaming about flying over those steps when we were leaving and still kind of worried because we were leaving the next morning. Well, I must have scooted unconsciously to my left, closer to the edge of the bed. I went to roll from my side to my back, except this time when I rolled, I kept going all the way off the bed onto the floor with a huge bang. Now, apparently, when a 300-pound man hits the floor in a small beach house with hardwood floors, it tends to make a big noise, which alerted my daughter and her husband in the other bedroom. And they're wondering if Florida does have earthquakes. But wow, that was a huge bang. Wait a minute. That was right next door. Did Trent fall out of bed? Wow, that was a big bang. In the meantime, back in the bedroom, Deb came awake because of the big boom when I hit the floor. She looked around in a pitch dark bedroom because we had blackout curtains and said, Trent, where are you? And I'm lying on the floor thinking, honey, I don't know what's going on through your mind, but maybe you think it's the rapture. and I disappeared. But no, honey, I fell off the bed and I'm lying on the floor. So Debbie turns the light on and realizes not only am I not on the bed, I'm on the floor. And oh man, how are we going to get you back in bed? This tall bed. Are we going to have to call the fire department again? This is not good. Well, to make matters worse, I was lying on the floor blocking the door to the bedroom, and Hannah couldn't get in. Dad, are you okay? She said. Yeah, honey, I'm okay. I'm not hurt, but I'm blocking the door. Let me scoot and I'll let you know when you can come in. So I scooted back so the door could open, and Justin and Hannah came in. And we tried to make a plan to get me back in bed. But the more I tried with Justin's help, the more it was frustrating. Finally, we kind of stumbled onto a plan. I got on my knees and I pushed. Because the bed was high, I was able to kind of push my buddy up over the bed. Deb was on the other side with Hannah, and they grabbed my arms and hands. Meanwhile, Justin, who is very strong, lifted my legs and kind of pushed me toward them. And I slid across the bed until I was on it. And then I was able to slide back up to the top. And I'm thinking, oh my God, now I've fallen twice in this little house. I hope tomorrow's not 3 times. I don't want to fall a 3rd time when we leave tomorrow. But even though that happened, I did get a good night's sleep. We got some good coffee, some breakfast. We packed and we pulled it off. I was able to walk down the stairs. I just kind of started walking across the patio and feeling really good in the walker because I had done it. I had walked down the stairs, and now gravity was my friend, and I wasn't going up. I didn't catch my big fat shoe in the ledge, which is a good thing, and it wasn't the rapture. I didn't go anywhere. I made it down the stairs, and now we're in a car heading to Orlando. We're going to meet Hannah and Justin at a little restaurant and have some good Filipino food in Orlando. And this is a good trip. The parks were very accessible. The restrooms are great. There's railings everywhere in Disney World. I can do stands. It's going to be great. I didn't like the falling bits. I didn't expect to fall out of bed. I didn't expect to slide down and have to be picked up by the fire department. But all in all, I'm so happy I made this trip, and I'm happy that I can share it with you. All right. That's it for this episode. Thank you so much for listening, and stay tuned for episode 7.